Alright, welcome to the WallRun tutorial part 4. Before we get started, I realized I made a mistake in the last one, which probably everybody saw. In the required keys down function, I accidentally put a branch here because I'm stupid. This should just be a return node. I'm sure all of you probably already fixed that yourself. Alright, so if we want to go ahead and test this out, we can just add a little print here, string, and just print hello whenever we can start wall running. So if I run and I jump out a wall, let's make this a little shorter, 0.25. So if I jump out a wall and I'm holding down the correct keys, you can see hello prints. If I don't hold down the correct keys, like I am right now, then nothing prints. So it seems like all of our checks are passing. I would make sure it's working for you as well. If it's not, go back and make sure you have things correct. So now that we have that, we can actually start writing the BeginWallRun function. So there's some things that need to happen when we begin wall running. And I'll just start going through those right now. So most of them are related to the character movement component. The first thing we need to do is we want to set our air control. And what that is how much control we have when the character is in the air. And we want to set that to 1 because we want to have full control. Because technically when you're wall running, Unreal thinks that you're in the air, but you're on a wall. But we want to be able to, when we press W, we want to be able to still move forward. So we want full air control when we're wall running. Another thing we want is no gravity so that we can't be pulled down. And of course, all this will be undone as soon as we stop wall running, so we won't run into any issues there. Another thing we need to do is set our plane constraint normal to the X and the Y axis so that we're constrained to the X and the Y. And to do that, you basically, it's kind of weird, but you set the Z axis to 1 because it's the normal of the surface you want to be constrained to. And we also want to set our wall running variable to true so that we are wall running. Another thing we want to do is begin our camera tilt. So begin camera tilt. And again, this is just a function defined down here in begin camera tilt. We haven't filled it out yet, but that's something we'll need to do. And finally, we want to start a timeline. So right click and hit timeline, add timeline. And this is our update wall run timeline. And we want to go straight into play. And the only thing we need to do with this timeline is just double click on it and hit loop so that it loops. Other than that, we don't need to do anything. It's basically just a event tick for us. And from here, we just simply want to call update WallRun. Okay, and now that we have the begin WallRun filled out, we want to fill out the end WallRun. So the end WallRun, I forgot to do this during the setup, but this should be taking in an input parameter for the reason that we stopped wall running. So add a parameter for WallRun reason. And just a reminder, this is an enum that we created in the very first tutorial video, and it's just has 2 separate entries in it, one for if we fell off the wall and one for if we jumped off the wall. Because we want to know why the wall running ended. And we should probably call this like reason or something. And the reason we care about the reason you fell off the wall or you are no longer wall running is because we want to change the jumps, how many jumps you have left, depending on if you jumped off a wall or if you fell off a wall. You might not want this in your game, but I definitely wanted it in mine, and I think it's a kind of a cool feature. If you don't want it, I'd still recommend following along because it's a very small change right now, and you can remove it later or customize it later, but it's a pretty neat feature. So we're just going to do a switch here for, actually let's delete that, do a select instead because I think that's a little easier. And we're eventually going to be calling reset jumps with this value. So if we fell off a wall, in my game, I just want to have, not 14, I just want to have the jumps reset to 1. So you can only jump one time after you fell off a wall. But if you actually jumped off a wall, like successfully, then I want you to have 2 jumps, basically. And so you'd probably think you would just drag this in and say, okay, because this is 2, so you'd have 2 jumps. But if you think about it, so you jump once to get off the wall, that's 1 jump. And then I want the player to be able to jump again. That's 2 jumps. But they already jumped once when they jumped off the wall. So you actually want to do max jumps minus 1. Because you're jumping off the wall. And I know you're probably thinking, okay, well, it's 1 for both of these, because 2 minus 1 is still 1. That's true. But if you ever change this to 3 or 4 or 5, then it will actually matter. So this is the proper way to do it. So yeah, so now if you fall off a wall, you'll only be able to jump once. And if you jump off a wall, you'll be able to it'll basically reset your jumps to maximum, including the one that including the jump from where you jumped off the wall. Hopefully that makes sense. All right, and after that, we basically just want to do the opposite and undo everything that we did up here. So we'll grab the character movement component, and we'll set our air control back to, it's actually 0.05 by default. So, because if you go to the character movement component and you type in air control, you see it's 0.05. So we're going to set it back to that. And we're going to set the gravity scale again, and we're going to set it back to 1 so that gravity affects us once again. Okay. And we're going to remove our plane constraint. Set plane constraint normal. And we're going to set that to just all zeros because we don't want to be constrained to any plane. And we're going to set wall running to false. And we're going to drag this, and we're going to stop our timeline. So let's just drag this over so it lines up a little better. Oh, there's one more thing I forgot. Before we do that, we want to also do this, the end camera tilt. So we'll do that, end camera tilt. Because we don't want the camera to still be tilted whenever we are no longer wall running. Okay, so that's our begin wall run and our end wall run. Also handling our jumping logic. Okay, so we're pretty close to being done now, sort of. Kind of, not really. Okay. So we'll open up the open wall run function. This is the main function we need to finish. I forgot we haven't actually done this one yet. Once we do this one, we'll be really close, I think, to being finished. All right, so open this up. Again, this is kind of the meat of it. It's not that bad though, don't worry, because we have a bunch of stuff already done for us. So this is going to be called every frame that we are on a wall. So we need to keep checking that the correct keys are down, that the wall is still there, and a bunch of other stuff to make sure we can still stay on the wall. And if we're no longer on the wall, we want to make sure we call end wall run so that we stop wall running. So it's just going to be a bunch of checks, and most of them are pretty simple. So the first one, we're going to make a branch, and we're going to use this our required keys down again and hook that up. So if the required keys are down, great. If not, we want to call end wall run. And the reason is already set, is because we fell off a wall. That reminds me, real quick, I'm going to take a little tangent here. Go back to event graph and go to jumping. And in the jump function, input action jump, we called this end wall run, but I forgot to change this. We want to change this to jumped off wall, the reason, because obviously we're jumping off the wall, so the reason we ended the wall run is because we jumped off the wall. I wanted to get that in before I forgot about it and then was confused. So sorry about that. Go back to your update WallRun function, and we'll continue from there. But yeah, all other cases, it's going to be that we fell off the wall. So again, just to recap, if we're not holding down the keys anymore, then we end the WallRun because we fell off the wall. And then after that, we want to do a line trace to make sure that we are actually still next to a wall. So if you right click and hit line trace by channel and hook that up to true. So we need to fill this out with some good stuff. Move it over a little bit. So the starting location is just the actor location of the character doing the wall running. And the end location, I'm going to move this over a little more. And it has to be straight. Okay. The end location is a little bit more complicated. So it's going to be the start location plus some stuff. So make a plus, hook that up. So I'll try to explain this the best I can. We want to find the vector that is perpendicular to the way that we are running. Yeah, the way that we are running. Because that way it's always going into the wall, because we're always running parallel to the wall. So to do that, we want to get the WallRun side, and we want to do a select off of that to figure out what vector we want to use. And we're eventually going to be doing a cross product with the WallRun direction. So cross product with this. And if we are on the right, we want to do +1 on the Z, so up. And if we're wall running on the left side, we want to do -1. So this is going to give us a vector going into the wall that we are wall running on. And it needs to have some sort of length, because right now it's just a normalized vector. And I'm just going to pass 200 for now. You might want to figure out a better way to do this. It just needs to be like long enough so that it will hit any wall you're next to. 200's fine. You probably never need to change it. It's probably just fine the way it is. Okay, so let me hook that up like that. So we're basically taking our start position plus 200 units in the direction towards the wall, and that is our end location. So just a vector into the wall that we're running against. And yeah, make sure ignore self is checked, because we don't want to collide with ourselves. And we want to check if we actually hit something, obviously. And if we didn't, then we want to end wall running, because that probably means that we ran past the wall or something like that. So end wall run. And the reason is that, yeah, we fell off the wall. But most of the time, that won't be the case. Most of the time, we're going to want to take this out hit, and we're going to want to break it. And basically, we want to figure out which direction we should keep wall running in. Because if the wall is curved, we might start running in one direction, but then if the wall starts to curve, we want to also curve which way we're running so that we're always running parallel to the wall. So to do that, we're going to kind of do something similar to what we did before. We're going to take the impact normal, and we're going to find run direction and side, which is that function we've already written. And one early out that we can check for is if the side has changed, because so if you're running along a wall and you look behind you, then this algorithm is going to basically say, oh, you're running on the other side of the wall now. But you're not actually running on the other side of the wall. You've just looked way too far to the side. So if that's the case, then we want to say, end wall run. You're no longer wall running. So we'll just check if these are equal to... Oh. We need to create a variable for the previous side before we set it. Yeah, sorry. So come down here, make a variable called previous side. And make sure it is of type WallRun side. And where do we want to do this? Yeah, so after, okay. So yeah, so right here, as soon as we decide we hit something, we want to take our WallRun side and set our previous WallRun side to it, so that way we preserve it before we call this function and set it to something else. Actually, do we even need to do that? Because this function doesn't actually change the WallRun side. Sorry, wait. I just realized this is a problem with my example code I'm looking at. We don't actually need this, so sorry. Delete that. Yes, because this function doesn't actually change it. So we can just say, we can just check if they are equal. And if they are, then everything's good. If they're not, then we want to stop while running. Pretty sure this is fine. It's much simpler this way. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. So if the side that we're while running on changes, then that means we've like totally turned around and we want to just stop while running because we fell off. But if that's also not the case, then we want to update our while run direction. So drag in while run direction, and we want to set it to that. We'll drag this up here, and I'll try to ignore that line being ugly. So now we have our new while run direction, because if the wall has changed, then we might get a new while run direction at this point. So we need to update our velocity based on the new direction. So we're gonna get our character movement component, and we're gonna set it to velocity. So set velocity, and we're gonna want to split this because we're only gonna want to set the x and the y velocity when we're while running. And so, yeah, so we're going to want to split this as well, or break this. So we're going to set the velocity x and y to our x and y like so. And then the z value, we just want to leave 0. So yeah, so this is right. The only other thing we need to do is we need to multiply this new velocity by our max walk speed so that we're not just crawling really slowly. So instead of doing this break vector, let's just do a multiply. Multiply by float. And we will call get max speed, or actually maybe get modified max speed. That should be better. Like so. Okay. And then we can split this now and hook up x and y. All right, so now our player's velocity is getting updated to be parallel with the wall that we are running on. And that is that for that function. So just a quick recap to make sure you got everything correct. The first thing we do is make sure we're still holding down the correct keys. If we're not, we end while running and we say it's because we fell off the wall. Otherwise, we do a line trace, starting at our actives location and going into the wall. Make sure you have these negative ones and positive ones correct. And if we didn't hit anything, then we can say we fell off the wall and we can stop wall running. Otherwise, we need to find the new run direction inside. If the run direction has changed, we want to stop wall running. If it hasn't changed, then we want to update our velocity based on the new wall run direction, like so. I think that's all right. So now we are very close to being done. We can test this at this point. The only thing we need to do is the camera tilt. So you can see if I run and I hold down left and forward, then I can run along the side of the wall. I can also do it on the right. Oops, I ran into the box. I can also do it on the right. If I try to hold down right instead of left, like right here, it won't work. Another thing to note is make sure that if you jump off a wall, you can jump twice, but if you simply fall off a wall, you can only jump once. And to jump off a wall, you have to be holding down right or left, whichever side the wall's on, and then you press space. So hold down left, press space, jump off of it, and then you can jump again. You can also make sure, like, if you run past a wall, you fall off. If you run and you look too far to the side, you fall off. All that should be working, which looks like it's working on mine, which is frankly kind of amazing that I didn't mess up. So we'll go ahead and save that. And in the last part of the tutorial, we will do the camera rotation. So I will see you then.